WOCA.
Ocala.
I went to a garden party to reminisce with my old friends. A chance to share old memories and play our songs again.
All right, 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Carol Ann Baldwin is in the studio, ready to talk about gardens and gardening, and she's got a guest today. Good morning, Carol Ann.
Good morning, Larry. How are you this morning?
Pretty good.
Good. Yeah, this morning we have Lance Walheim. He is the spokesman from Bear Advanced on the air with us. He's where are you at today?
I'm actually back and home in California for the first time for a couple of days. We've been running around with the Durazone tour and the Flower and Garden tour, so I was actually in your neck of the woods last week.
Yeah, I heard. Yes, you were, but you were on the road at the time of the show. So
exactly.
Yeah, but that's quite all right. It's always great to have you come on with us because everybody has lots of questions on the gardening and proper selection of product, and just how to get the right item for their need in their garden, in their landscape, for their lawn. We've had kind of a funny March here that we really had almost no winter for most of our winter, and then come the end of February, first part of March, we've had cold and warm and cold and warm and cold. So we've had a kind of a strange early March that we had plants that were blooming about 2 weeks early on many instances. A lot of the fruit trees, a lot of the dogwoods and the redbuds and things like that bloomed 2 weeks earlier. They were in full bloom, and then we were having frosts. And so we've had some interesting gardening and landscape issues this winter.
Yeah, I noticed. When I was there last week, I couldn't believe the forecast. They were having some really cold mornings.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we've had some that were getting up. The afternoon might have hit 65 or so, but the mornings, the overnight was down in the upper 20s, low 30s, and really everybody was uncovering. I don't think I've seen a whole lot of damage, but folks have been trying to bring their turf up out of dormancy and trying to make folks realize that you really need to wait for that turf to come up out of dormancy on its own when those nighttime temperatures start to stay up above 45, up into the 50s, when that grass starts to wake up, when we start to get some rain, or when irrigation starts to kick in again. I think around here, I'm not real sure how it really does go in the rest of the country on that, but we, trying to take care of the weeds and feed the lawn. We're tackling the weeds first.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to force a lawn out of dormancy. Otherwise, a lot of times, and it's true just about anywhere in the country, whether you're talking warm season or cool season grasses, if you force things out of dormancy, you're not only probably wasting some of the nutrients, but a lot of times you will force the foliage growth at before the roots are really ready to push it out. So it's a lot of times it's better to wait until you really start seeing some of that greening up before you start putting down any nitrogen fertilizers.
Oh, sure. And not just, when you're forcing it out, when we've had this back and forth cold, that if folks had fertilized too early in the season, they might have actually caused more damage than benefit to the lawn because it was growing ahead of time.
Right, lawn and all sorts of other plants. You force plants out of dormancy, and this is exactly what happens. They have a lot of tender growth on them.
The fresh new growth is what's going to get burned. But of course, this time of year, we do try to tackle the weeds a little bit in advance of the growing season. I got them setting up that thing in front of me, and it's a little distracting.
That's the breakfast cart, huh?
Yeah, no, they got something they're trying to remind me about, because we now have Black Cow as a sponsor this year again here in the spring. So they're got the little Black Cow thing that they keep showing me to remind me. But no, we're trying to take care of the weeds though at this time of year, so that when the grass does come up, they're not having to compete so much with the the weeds that are growing that have come up throughout the winter. Even though many of the winter weeds, if they're annuals, yes, they did reseed themselves, but they'll go away once it heats up. But trying to just get some control over some of those other weeds that are perennial and are longer lasting is trying to get those down.
Right. Controlling weeds in the lawn is really a two-pronged step in most cases. In many cases, you'll hopefully have gotten a pre-emergent out there that's going to prevent, some of the seeds from coming up. Things like crabgrass, and it's important that you also, recognize exactly what kind of weeds you have, and then, obviously, when you're using any weed control product, make sure that weed is on the label and that you read all the instructions on the label so that you get it right. I mean, that's really the best way. Not only is that the law, that's the best way to get the best results. And, of course, Bayer Advance has a great line of southern weed killers that, can be used to kill all sorts of weeds, and we also have a season lawn which has kills broadleaf weeds on contact, but it'll also prevent them from coming back for 6 months. So you really need to think about it and understand what weeds you're going to have. If you need to take them down to a local nursery to get them identified, that's a great thing to do as well. And then, of course, we've got some great tools for identifying weeds at BayerAdvance.com so that you can get the proper recommendation for the right product.
Yeah, and that's and I know here with the southern weed control, it is. For us, we have to be careful because it's good for the bahia, the centipede, and things like that. And it does say that it's for St. Augustine, but then when you hit that fine print, it says it's not for Floratam. And unfortunately, in our area, there's a lot of Floratam St. Augustine, so folks have to, be aware of what your lawn is. Make sure you do know what kind of grass you have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's a problem with controlling some of the weeds in the St. Augustine for exactly that reason. So, yeah, it always pays to read the label. You won't get the results that you want if you don't. No,
you don't. And you really and I have I've stood there in the aisles and such and shown people the directions, and it's kind of going, there's some of their thoughts is going, this is going to do better if I mow the grass first, be sure that it's not drought stressed or lack of water stressed. I need to not water it the day after. I need to let it sit for a few days, so I also have to watch the weather.
Right, yeah.
It's not just your timer on the irrigation system.
That's right, and some of these are, temperature dependent, so they're going to work better. Temperatures are a little bit warmer or above a certain level, so, I mean, you just, everybody feels kind of like, well, I got to read a label, it's a pain in the neck, but that's where you're going to get the best information that's going to give you the best results.
That's right, and that's what we all want. Why spend the money if you're not going to put it down correctly? I mean, it works the same way with lawn and landscape as you figure when your physician writes you a prescription. You read and follow the directions on that because you wanted to take care of your illness properly, so without having to go back to the doctor over and over again.
That's the perfect analogy.
It's the same kind of thing as reading and following those directions. It's not just so that you don't harm yourself or your pets or your family or the environment, even though all of those are another reason why. But it's also for the best results.
Right.
If you're going to go out and spend the money to try to make your lawn and landscape more beautiful, that you have a pest problem, a weed problem, a disease problem, you want to get the product that's going to work for it, and you want to put it down the way it should be put down for the best results.
And at the right time of the year.
And at the right time, yeah. So what are you seeing out there here in early spring? I guess we may be about the only ones coming into spring right yet, except I guess parts of California there.
Yeah, well, when I was in the Tampa area, I certainly saw that, everybody, we went in talking about roses and flowers and things, and we kind of, the same day we got in, they put water restrictions on the lawns,
right,
in particular. So, it's the dry time of the year. So even though it's spring and it seems like everything's growing great and the weather temperatures can be cool, although they can change quickly, you've got to be smart about your watering as well.
Yeah.
And when we were down there, we talked a lot about how to properly water your St. Augustine lawn, so that we're lucky some of these water restrictions come into effect at this time of year, because it gives us a chance to really water properly for the next couple months and get those roots down deep. You want to get that water down to 6 to 8 inches and develop a deep root. If you're out there, one of those, you have your timer set for every day. Once it gets hot, and if you have to cut back on your watering, you're going to be in trouble because you're going to have shallow roots. So.
Right. And here in Ocala in Central Florida, Marion County, I guess I can only speak for, is just when the clocks changed 2 weeks ago is when they actually upped the frequency that you're allowed to irrigate from 1 day a week in the winter months to 2 days a week here into the spring. Mm-hmm. So that does help to bring that turf up out of dormancy and get, like you said, a good watering down in. But then when our rainy season starts in a couple of months, you should have a good root system already going. Turn that irrigation off, let nature take over for most of your irrigation and your mowing, and then just take care of your mowing and your proper fertilization.
Right, exactly right. We were talking about weeds and things in lawns, and a lot of times you can reduce weed problems by maintaining a good, healthy turf, by doing proper fertilizer, by mowing at the right height, and by watering it. I mean, think about it. St. Augustine is a pretty aggressive grass, and if it's maintained properly, you're going to reduce the amount of weeds you have. So, taking care of your lawn properly goes a long way in keeping the weeds out.
And it actually, watering properly, mowing properly, fertilizing properly at the right time, etc., also makes a healthier turf to where it withstands the insect problems. You don't have as much disease issue, and so in the long run you save money.
Right.
And you have a wonderful turf, a wonderful lawn, and I know around here they do, are trying to encourage people to have less lawn, more flower beds, so that you don't have to mow. That's where the most money goes into, is into your lawn, into irrigation, into fertilization and things, and the pollution issues. But if it's done properly, it can, you can bring down that amount of fertilizer. I believe the university here, University of Florida, for our turf is usually saying like 1 to 2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet for the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, and what you're talking about, that's kind of happening all over the country.
Right.
The encouraging of people to, use more native plants, reduce the size of the lawn, and water is going to be an issue for a long time to come. It's about supplies, it's about drought, but it's also about the number of people that we have.
Right. We can't mine more water.
Right. And so we need to use what we have very carefully. Now, one of the things that's going on out there too is the technology when it comes to sprinklers and irrigation timers is really improving dramatically, and there's some great new sprinklers out there that apply water more efficiently and more evenly. I just put a new irrigation system out in my lawn, and it's hooked to a smart controller.
Oh, yeah.
Which with the weather station, and which allows you it'll adjust your watering by itself. So, based on the existing weather and historical weather data, I mean, it's the stuff that's coming around there will also help you.
Oh yeah, it about rattle your brain trying to think of all that. But I know here at least in like your flower beds and you're planting your landscape areas, going with the micro irrigation is really beginning to, or has already been a real big boon to being able to water even when restrictions are on, that
right.
You actually are allowed to irrigate because you are using that water more efficiently. You're not sending it up in the air to evaporate. It's not coming on or spraying out when it's raining, usually, like you said, with those weather station linked irrigation timers, that it is a much more efficient way. putting down the water in order to conserve it. And when you put the water down right, again, it goes back to even your fertilizer and pesticide applications, is that it's not washing that away.
Right. And
it's allowing that to release on a more even level.
Right. I mean, drip irrigation or micro irrigation applies the water exactly to where it's needed, just to the roots of the plant. It applies it slowly. There's no runoff. It's not just about conserving water. Again, what you find out is when you're watering properly and you're doing it right, you're going to get healthier plants. And it's also going to reduce the weeds. Think about it. If you're just putting that water right where the roots need it, as opposed to wetting a large surface area, you're going to have fewer weeds. So
yes.
it's better for your plants, and you're conserving water. It's funny how all these things that we do to kind of conserve fertilizer, conserve water, these are things that are going to give us healthier plants in the long run. If you're not overhead watering your roses, if you're applying the water at the base, for instance, you're going to have fewer disease problems. I mean,
right.
These things are going to result in better, healthier plants.
Right, and a healthier plant withstands pest infiltration and even disease issues when they do happen much easier. That's
exactly right, and we know full well too that when trees or something, plants are stressed, they can actually attract insects. So
yes,
it pays in many ways to keep the plants healthy.
Right. When we had the issue here with the southern pine beetle, they began to notice it actually when people were thinning trees and that the trees were being damaged or limbs were being cut. When you cut that limb, suddenly the pine beetles were finding that.
Right.
And that was just the removal of a limb or two, or a tree that got damaged. Suddenly you had an infestation. That was in this area we have a lot of pines, or out in the Ocala National Forest, a lot of pines, and it's a big timber plant everywhere, and so just the stresses, the drought stresses and things like that do encourage pests, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it goes back also to the smarter you can be about pest issues and really know what causes them and what time of year to expect them. And you've got such great resources from the University of Florida there and the Cooperative Extension websites that can help you with the timing of these things. If you can get out in front of the pests when you know they're coming, they're a lot easier to control.
Sure, when you can tackle them before they become a major issue, and a lot of that too is just going into your lawn. Don't just sit in the house and look out the window,
right.
and realize, well, today's Saturday, I have to mow, and look, I have a brown patch,
right,
and and then next week when you go out to mow, it's bigger,
right.
Taking care of it or investigating it and finding out what that problem is early makes it much easier to treat it and take care of it and get that lawn back or get that tree back or that shrub back where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, we talk a lot, of course, about the Very Advanced Natria line, which is the non-synthetic line of pest control products,
right.
And includes the organic options. And this is a way that a lot of people want to go this time, or now, and into vegetable gardens especially. And you can be successful about it, but you have to realize that especially with organic gardening, you've got to be a great observer out in your garden. You've got to look for these pests all the time whenever you're harvesting or whenever you're out there, so that you can get ahead of them and get them, under control immediately when you see them, because these, it's a good news, bad news story. The good news is, these things don't last long in the environment. The bad news is these things don't last long in the environment.
So, exactly.
So you have to use them more frequently, and you have to use them early on. So, to be an successful organic gardener, you've got to be more observant. You've got to be out in your garden. You've got to get after these things quickly, and stay after them.
And right, stay alert to what can be coming up, and then taking the same issues that we were talking about in the turf into that vegetable garden, into that herb garden, is again proper watering and
right.
proper fertilization, because I know that most vegetable plants, and I guess it goes pretty well with most of the landscape, you can lose a third of the plant leaf material and still have a harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So to not freak out just because there are a few pests that you don't necessarily have to go to the chemical side. If you wish to stay with the organic varieties will take care of the pests, but it may not be quite as quickly. It may need more repeated applications, but even with the organics, you still need to read the labels.
Exactly, you do, because
it's still a pesticide.
That's exactly right, and again, it goes back to the same thing. You even know that it's organic, if it's used improperly, you can do damage to the environment. So, you have to read these labels, whether they're organic or not. It's still the same issue. And what you said about, growing vegetables is exactly right. I mean, when you are growing vegetables, annual vegetables, you want to get them off to a strong start, so that and proper fertilization and water is critical to that. And so you have to keep after them, get them growing fast, and then a lot of times with things like tomatoes, you have to back off and things because you don't want a lot of certain nutrients when they're actually setting fruit and things. But to get them started, you want to keep them growing vigorously.
A good healthy plant is going to put forth a more healthy crop. Now, I know a lot of folks. I've used it. The systemic that Bayer's got for fruit, vegetable, and citrus. I know a lot of people worry that it's a systemic. How can you put a systemic within a food crop and not have that get into the fruit itself? And it's my understanding the way it travels within the plant, it just doesn't enter that flower. Or can you?
Excuse me.
Can you get me a little further on that?
The product that you're talking about, the imidacloprid, actually travels through the xylem of the plant, which primarily serves the leaves. So,
right.
And if you look at the label of that product, you'll see that there are no really any fruit pests on there. That's because it doesn't go into the fruit. And then, of course, this is a perfect example of when you really have to read the label on the product. Again, is that when you're using it on different vegetables, there are days to harvest. You use it only when the plant is small. It's designed to be, it's all about reading the label if you want to use the product safely.
Right. And Lance, we've got a phone call. Can we take a call here?
Sure.
All right.
Yes, I'm calling. I think it's a good idea. You people doing a good job, people raising their own food, because on Dr. Ozd's program yesterday on TV, he said these tractor trailers for years, they've been getting after them, their refrigeration to save gas. Now they're turning it off in a lot of your vegetables, and then the last 15 minutes or so when they get in, then they put the refrigeration on, so it'll be cold. But there's a lot of things going on with the vegetables that way.
That where they're shipping them improperly.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm sure it's going on in other states. There's a big campaign on buying local.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's, that's the other side of it. There's just nothing better than fresh-grown vegetables. I mean, once you've had a good homegrown tomato, broccoli, even something as simple as a homegrown potato, believe it or not, is so much better than what you can get in the supermarket. And I always encourage people, vegetable gardening becomes a lifestyle almost. Where
it is.
And you include your kids, and your kids get these wonderful basic lessons in nature and growing things, and I really encourage people to make vegetable gardening a family thing, and then the kids find out where the produce come from. They find out that it doesn't have to taste bad, that it can taste very good, and they can have a lot of fun.
They can have a lot of fun. They get to play in the dirt.
Right.
I think that's where a lot of the best flavor is, that it is picked at that peak of ripeness.
Right.
I know I've gotten into my garden, and most of the potatoes weren't quite ready because the potatoes take so much longer than the green beans, but you get rustling around in the hill of potatoes, and you find you a half dozen little baby red skin potatoes, a couple handfuls of green beans, and an onion out of the garden, and there you've got a little bit of ham. You got dinner right there, and it just is fresh. The flavor's just so much better than if you would have gone to the supermarket.
Right, I know. Out here, you see a lot of commercial tomatoes being harvested, and you see them in big trucks, and they're still green. And you just, it's hard for me to eat a tomato in the middle of winter. I just, I get spoiled from those.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've got another call.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Love your show as always,
Thanks.
Carolyn.
Yeah.
Lori. And thank you for your guest. I heard something recently, and I just wanted to share it. It was something like, rather than trying to explain miracles to your children, plant a garden.
Just show them.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
It truly is a miracle. It starts with this little tiny thing, and then what it produces.
It sure is, and you've got a horrible echo there.
Yeah, I just turned down the radio. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
The whole process, for example, of planting a seed and watching it germinate and be able to produce food. I mean, that's nature at its very basic and most beautiful level, if you ask me, and the lessons there that you can use to teach your kids are phenomenal.
Oh, it is, yeah, and the sciences and the rest of it that are going with it. Are we at the bottom of the hour there, Larry?
Yeah, I'm just trying to break in just for a second. We have to take a little commercial break, and we will be right back.
Are you still fertilizing flowers and vegetables the old-fashioned way? Then switch to Dynamite. Dynamite Complete Plant Food. The secret to more flowers, bigger blooms, and more vegetables is consistent feeding. Dynamite Complete Plant Food has a unique protective coating that releases nutrition consistently, so there are no highs and lows. Dynamite is complete nutrition. It contains the micronutrients plants need in small quantities for maximum growth. With Dynamite, you get an explosion of color, flowers, and vegetables. Dynamite comes in a handy shake and feed plastic bottle. Just one application will last up to 6 months. For more flowers, bigger blooms, and more vegetables, try Dynamite today. Visit our website and learn more about the science behind the modern, long-lasting way to feed your flowers and vegetables at DynamitePlantFood.com. Dynamite Complete Plant Food.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Married men are more likely to keep up with routine doctor's visits than bachelors. Their cancer was detected earlier, so they were 35% more likely to survive. The longer we commute, the more stress we have in our bodies, the higher our body mass index, and the more strain it puts on our relationships. People learn more effectively when they break up their lessons over several short sessions rather than one long cramming marathon.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
What if I told you that you could retire at 46 and make $155,000 a year for the rest of your life? You'd say it's a get-rich-quick scheme, right? But you'd be wrong. It's happening right now because so-called conservative legislators are backing public employee unions, forcing Florida cities to provide platinum-plated pension plans to government workers. In just one example, the Sun Sentinel reports that a deputy fire chief retired at 46 with a $155,000 annual pension payout that's expected to cost local taxpayers more than $5 million. In many cases, public union workers are making more in retirement than they made on the job. This has to stop. Floridians can't afford it. Contact your state legislators. Tell them it's time to fix the local pension problem. Stop the unaffordable mandates and start standing up for Florida's towns and taxpayers today. Paid for by Citizens for Local Decision Making.
Right now, somewhere in the world, there is a bear waking up from a long winter's hibernation. Scientists are not 100% sure how a bear knows winter is over, but I think I may have an explanation. Here it is. Spring comes to Florida first, so Florida gardeners get that spring fever first and head over to Kenny's Place Nursery. They go to Kenny's Place for gazanias, impatiens, geraniums, and begonias, all for 99 cents each. They also head to Kenny's Place Nursery for pansies, selling for $4 for $1. Now, that is a honey of a deal. Well, the thought of the honey reminds those gardeners of the special role pollinators like bees have in the garden. Now, every bear knows that where there are bees, there is honey. So, their noses wiggle, their ears twitch, and boom, the bear wakes up. And all because of a great sale at Kenny's Place Nursery. Who knew? Kenny's Place Nursery is located at 7677 Southeast 41st Court in Ocala. Give them a call at 867-1213. It's a honey of a deal at Kenny's Place.
Mark your calendars for Saturday, April 6th for the Francis Marion Military Academy Spring Fling at the Ocala Shrine Club on Mary Camp Road. Join the first annual Swamp Fox Chili Cook-Off and Classic Car Show. Take a chance on winning one of 5 different late model vehicles for the unbelievably low price of just $20 per ticket. Only 5,000 tickets will be sold. The proceeds benefit the Francis Marion Military Academy. Businesses, organizations, and talented individuals are invited to show off their cooking skills and to compete for the best tasting chili. Go to swampfoxevents.com for the registration directions to the Shrine Club, Car Show, Chili Cook-Off. Join our sponsors in supporting the Academy. Remember, that's Saturday, April 6th for the Francis Marion Military Academy Spring Fling at the Ocala Shrine Club on Mary Camp Road. The first annual Swamp Fox Chili Cook-Off and Classic Car Show. For more information, call Charlie at 843-7790. That's 843-7790. 843-7790. Or visit swampfoxevents.com.
News Talk 1370. WOCA invites you to discover your full business potential. News Talk Radio is the perfect environment for your advertising. WOCA's News Talk format pinpoints information-hungry, better educated, high-income adults. So use us to talk to them. Call 732-8000. 732-8000. We're Ocala News Talk Radio. News Talk 1370 WOCA.
All right, 24 minutes before 10 o'clock. Beautiful Tuesday morning. Let's rejoin Carol Ann Baldwin. And you've got a garden, Carol Ann.
Good morning again. This morning we do have, if anybody's just tuning in, we've got Lance Walheim with Bear Advance on with me this morning, but I also want to make sure everybody knows that the Master Gardeners are out and about during the weekends here this spring season with an Ask the Expert program doing fertilizer education in the big box stores. Last weekend they did the Home Depot here in Ocala. This weekend, this Saturday from 10 to 1, they will be at all the Marion County Lowe's locations. So at all of them, from 10 to 1, should you be in a neighborhood, and I think we have 3 right here in Ocala, Marion County. There's Silver Springs, West Ocala, and the one right by the interstate. And then next weekend on the 30th, from 10 to 1 again, is at all the Walmarts. And I think we now have 1, 2, 3. We've got about 5 different Walmarts around here. So if you've got fertilizer questions, you can't, or you don't want to call in or something like that, and you can't find me somewhere, come in. They're going to be talking about fertilizer labels, proper application, proper timing, probably a little bit even on calibrating your spreader so that you're putting down the right amount of product on your lawn and within your landscape. And did I hear the phone ring?
Yes, you have.
All right.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, you two kids.
Hey, good morning.
This is Kathy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add 2 things when you were talking about gardening. The Master Gardeners, by the way, also are at the Farmers Market, North Magnolia, every 3rd Friday.
Every 3rd Friday.
Every 3rd Friday down at North Magnolia Farm Market to answer your questions. But back to gardening, and so many people are so overwhelmed when they start a garden that they don't do it. And I always say to them, take baby steps. If you're going to redo your yard, you're not going to redo your whole yard.
Right.
It's just too overwhelming. Just put a big old pot by your door. The door you go in and out of every single day. Front door, probably.
Right.
And just put a couple plants in there, put a couple herbs in there, and of course put a couple flowers, pollination, and all that. You'd be amazed at how many times you go back to that. And just start with the simple thing, a salad.
Yes, yes.
So simple, and that's just going to make you want a real big urn.
It makes it makes you start to, you need a bigger urn then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or then and then you go to the square foot and you step up from there and keep going into it.
Exactly. I don't believe I've ever had a real garden my whole life. I've always interspersed it in amongst my flower beds.
Well, it protects them as well as you get you're in one of those beds at any given time, probably.
Exactly. And I'm like you. You're out there just pretty much eating all day long.
There you go. Just graze. Just go through the garden and graze.
Yeah, puts another spin on gardening, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Also, in raised beds, go with cinder blocks. They're so much easier.
You can move them a lot easier, and they do. Yeah, you can shape it however you want.
Exactly. All right, go garden.
All right. Thanks, Kathy.
Well, that's great advice. You know, a lot of good advice in there. Actually, you know, one thing to get into gardening real easy is to start a nice little pot or a container garden, especially if you use things like herbs, because they transfer so easily into the kitchen. When you start using fresh herbs, whether you're making a marinade for the barbecue, whether you're sprinkling them in the salad, something as simple as chives, basil, I mean, these are easy plants to grow. And that's a great way to get started. But the other great advice is, of course, is if you're a beginner, and I tell people all this time, you know, get the raised bed is really a great way to go with the vegetable garden. You get the ideal type of soil. You don't have to deal with all the weeds. You can put in a little micro irrigation system in there, even on a timer if you want. I mean, it just simplifies things so much.
Oh, yeah, and actually, there's so many different ways. Over at the county extension, they give the square foot garden where you've got your 4 foot by 4 foot demonstration on that. Real small, real simple. Something you can do with the children, or raise it. You know, you can make it as high as you need. Should you have some issues of being able to bend down, doing in buckets. Actually, even just the bag of soil or a cow manure. You know, you get your bag of black cow, punch some holes in the bottom of it, lay it out there. You can cut a slit in the top of the bag and just plant right into it. Your irrigation, you know, it's not going to dry out so easy, and the bag's going to last you till the end of the season.
Right. And how many times have you seen people growing potatoes in tires? So
yes, there's
it's, you know, when it's something that a lot of beginning gardeners don't realize. You know, it all starts with the soil, and you know, if you can improve the soil you have, or if you can build a raised bed and put the perfect soil in there, it may be a little bit more expensive, but in the long run, you're just going to it's going to be so much easier. And
here with our soil, we're so sandy. You have to improve. So if you can go the raised bed, even if your raised bed is, say, just 1 cinder block high, 8 inches high, and you can't really afford to fill it completely, but you can bring in some. You can buy a couple bags of manure. You can buy a couple bags, or make a tumbler or a compost pile full of compost for this year, and work that in. Each year or each season that you add to that, all that stays in there. It doesn't spread out, and you don't ever walk in there again. That's why you make them 4 feet wide, or a little bit even smaller. You never have to step in there again, so you never have compaction, and all you're doing is always adding beneficial and good stuff to it.
That's right. You know, and an organic matter is the solution to most problems. Whether it's sandy soil, it improves the moisture retention, it improves the nutrient retention. Or if you happen to have a clay soil, the answer is organic matter. It loosens it up, provides aeration, because that's what you want. You want that perfect balance of moisture holding capacity, nutrient holding capacity, and aeration. So the roots can grow, get what they need. And
for us, it also helps with the nematodes.
There you go.
Because they don't like the organic matter. Has the microbes that help to destroy them. Did I see the phone ringing?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. That was perfect, because that's kind of what I'm calling about, the soil.
Super.
I have a couple. There's just a couple of questions, but the first is, since you mentioned compost,
right?
I feel like I've been studying compost, and I've gotten lots of books, and I keep looking for this. It's like the one perfect formula. My piles, I have several piles, and I've seen the ones down there at the center. I was just there last week, but they never seem to. They break down, but it's never this process of just all that crumbly, you know, a big bucket of it. It's always at the bottom, just a little bit of crumbly stuff. And I guess maybe I need to put them in some kind of a container. Mine are just loose out in the yard. I just pile them up.
That might be part of it, is that if you can keep them contained into something about anywhere between 3 to 4 foot square or circle, you know, that kind of keeps that all in one place. You do need to throw some of the native soil into it, because that's going to bring some microbes in there, and getting that balance between green material and brown material, your nitrogen and your carbon and moisture. and keeping that all in there. And sometimes, yes, you do have to turn them.
Okay. And is there a point of stopping it? I mean, do you just, because I keep adding and adding and adding, and it's a perennial compost pile, it seems like. So do I just stop it when it's about 3 feet tall?
That would be the best way to do it, is to fill one and then build another one. And then as the first one is beginning to work, you might even throw a little bit of a commercial fertilizer in there, or if you have some access to some manure, that's going to help it heat up quick while you're building the next pile. Once the one pile begins to break down some, you'll turn it some. Your second pile is full, you start up a third one. By the time your third one's full, your first one should be ready to use. Even if it's not fully broken down, if depending on the time of year, you can still work that into the bed and it'll finish working if you're resting it, say, in July and August when nothing's growing here.
Okay. The favorite compost pot, compost is a living thing, and you definitely, you have to feed it. It needs air, but one of the best compost piles I ever had was a 3 section compost pile. In other words, there were 3 about 4 by 4 foot cubes that had wire on the side, and I would just after a couple, you mix it in, you get it layered the way you want it, and then about 2 weeks later you just move it to the next compartment, and then you start another one over, and then finally about 2 or 3 weeks later you move it again to the final compost bin. So you've got a 3-bin thing, and by the time the stuff gets to the final bin, it's ready to use. And in the process, you've been turning it, you've been moistening it, and that's how you get it nice and crumbly. And it was wonderful. But you do need to move the pile, I think. I mean, I think that will help you if you move it from one place to another.
Is to turn
as you're turning it,
right, basically turning it over. I know some of the commercial, you can get ones that are commercial tumblers,
right,
or the ones where you just sort of pile it and let it rot, and those will work, but you sort of fill it all up and then stir it throughout the season a little bit, even if it is just taking the fork and putting in and turning a little bit and opening it up some with, and adding a little water.
Yeah, you need that air too. I mean, that's key, to be turning it often, providing the nutrients that it needs, whether it's the lawn clippings, whether it's manure, or whatever you're using, and the moisture. It's a perfect balance of moisture, and so if you're turning it often, you avoid those problems of getting everything soggy. You're providing all the air, and you can add some of the nutrients if you need to, get it to heat up a little quicker.
Right. And phone's ringing.
Good morning. You're on the air.
I have another question.
Oh.
Same caller. Sorry about
no
that.
problem.
Here was my main question, really. I just had my soil tested. It came back 6.9.
Okay.
And I want to grow vegetables. Do I need to do anything? This is with compost and manure. Nothing else. It came back 6.9. So
that's for our area. That's not bad. It's below 7. It's not a lot below 7. Most plants like that slightly acidic, about a 6.5. But really, most things, if you've put that amendment into the soil, you're going to still grow okay.
Yeah, I think you're in pretty good shape. I'd be happy with a 6.9.
Yeah.
Okay, no sulfur?
Sulfur takes a long time to really make a difference in the soil, in a pH reading. I think you're going to be okay doing that. Just if you're going to use any other type of fertilizer, make sure it's got the micronutrients in it.
Okay, but pretty much we're okay with that?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Over there at the extension office, their soil doesn't run a whole lot better than that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, a lot of people get concerned on they want to compost oak leaves or pine straw or things like that, and they think it's going to change the pH, but it really does not.
Yeah,
it does not do a significant amount of change when you're composting those materials as well. If you have it available on your property, you just have to make it into a smaller piece of material to get it to break down quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think that, in that range of 6.9 or pretty close to neutral, that she's not going to have any problems with that.
No, I don't think so. So long as you're not too far over that 7, it should be real good. And if she wanted to work, to get a little of the, if she has access to some pine needles or anything like that, oak leaves to put into the compost. Composting right in the bed works also as something. If you've got an area that maybe you didn't finish that bed, you built a 4 foot by 12 foot long bed, and you got one end that you're not ready to fill that in, you can throw a whole bunch of stuff in there to get it working. Just spade that in and let it sit for the few months. When you're ready to plant that's going to be broken down as well.
Right. I apologize for my email coming in there. The world here, I just had email come in.
Oh.
I turned that down.
Okay. No, we didn't. I didn't catch it. I didn't hear the signal. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. If you're constantly adding good organic matter to your beds, then your soil is going to slowly decrease, but you're not going to at least get it more alkaline. So.
Right. So keeping you'll keep that at that balance, and so that's a beneficial way to go. I was going to ask you guys, I heard something, and I know it's actually kind of stepping a little bit in a different direction on, because you all have citrus out there in California, of course, and we have it. Yeah, we have it here, and this year they're talking about an excessive amount of fruit drop.
Oh, really?
And all trees will shed fruit, and when they speak of that, are they talking of that this is part of this year's harvest that they're still working on? I don't know if you
Yeah, it depends. This time of year, we're coming to the end of our harvest,
right?
And the navels, although they are tasting wonderful and sweet, we are seeing a lot of fruit drop on the ground. We've had pretty inconsistent weather here too. We've had some real warm days going for cold days. There's a number of different times during the life of a citrus tree where you'll get a lot of fruit drop. As the fruit becomes over mature, that's when you start to see some of the fruit drop. It's a good time to start eating it as quickly as you can.
Right.
The other time you see is, of course, around a June drop, which would be, a couple months after the bloom, and that's really when the tree is, a citrus tree it produces just hundreds of thousands of blossoms,
right.
A mature tree, and out of those blossoms, only 1% to 2% is probably going to become fruit. So, first of all, you see a lot of blossoms on the ground. You don't have to worry about that. But then later in the season, the tree is going to naturally thin itself
to shed those marble size and plum sized fruit.
Right.
Some of those.
That being said, during that period in the spring, you definitely don't want to let your trees dry out, because that can increase the amount of fruit drop that you get. And that's also an important time of the year for the citrus tree, because the fruit is sizing up then. So, it just happens it can correspond with some of the drier periods in Florida. So you want to make sure that you're getting those trees some regular water.
Yeah, and I know it's one of those, I don't know, a catch-22 kind of thing. I have citrus trees in my yard. There's nothing better than having a jar of fresh squeezed juice in the fridge, excuse me, or fresh citrus, fresh tangerines in your lunchbox, whatever. Mm-hmm. But here with the greening as being a big issue, a lot of times the extension's not really recommending people to plant them, but I still say if that's something you want in your landscape, it's no longer going to be a tree that's going to last you 35 years, like citrus used to, and be a good producer because of the problems we're beginning to have, especially with the greening. But mm-hmm. I think you can still get a good dooryard citrus. What's your thoughts on something like that?
Well, it's definitely not as easy as it used to be. I mean, the citrus greening and the psyllids are really changing the face of backyards in Florida, and it's starting in California. We don't have the greening yet, but we are certainly worried about getting it, because we do have the psyllid. Now, you can, fruit, citrus, and vegetable insect control from Bayer Advance does protect trees against psyllids, but the problem is you can only apply that once a year, and it's probably going to last about 3 to 4 months. So
well, it's during that early leaf stage where that's what the psyllids are feeding on.
Right. So you can, again, it's about knowing the lifestyle of the psyllid and when to properly apply this material so you can get the best results. And then, know that, there are other flushes of growth in the fall possibly where you may have to, do some other things. It's not easy. There's no doubt about it. This is a serious threat to citrus. But you're right. I don't think we have to give up. The tree we may not see those 50, 60, 100-year-old trees around it like we used to. But,
right.
You can work at it. You can still do it, I think. I hate to think of what the world's going to be like without any citrus trees in backyards.
Or, right, if they have to be grown in a greenhouse in order to, or in a net house in order to be able to produce. Yeah, I think if you take the time, you can still do it. And again, keeping a healthy tree.
Right.
Is getting a good start on them, and I know a lot of the listeners and a lot of people out there like to hit the bargain tables in the big box stores of the distressed plants, and I keep trying to tell people, you might get a good bargain, but you're not necessarily getting a real good plant. And if you're going for a citrus tree, there's here, at least in Florida, I don't know if it's around the country, there's a second tag on those citrus trees, and it has a treatment date.
Mm-hmm.
And if that treatment date is passed, they're really not supposed to sell you that tree.
That's right.
That tree's supposed to go back to the nursery. Yeah, that tree's either supposed to go back to the nursery to be retreated or to be disposed of because of the psyllid.
Right. You want to start off with a good, healthy tree, and you don't want to do anything that's going to help spread anything around. But, you're getting healthy plants to start with. It's surprisingly how long a lot of the bare root roses will be left in the nurseries, and they'll be on sale for a fraction of the price, but they're all leafed out, and they've been in the sawdust. I'll tell people the same thing with that. You're not getting a bargain with that. It's not going to give you the long-range results. It's better that you spend a little money, get a quality plant to start with.
That's it. Yeah. Buy them when they're fresh. Buy them when they're looking good. Make sure, if you're looking to buy a plant, do a couple of days worth of research. It doesn't take a whole lot of finding out which varieties are going to do the best in your area.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be either, if you're talking citrus, the type of fruit you would like to have, and whether or not it does real well. They like to put in some unusual things that, like the variegated lemon.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful little tree, but it's not necessarily as cold hardy as a Myers.
That's right.
And so realizing that if you may have that beautiful little tree, but you are going to have to put forth a little more effort. So before you go and buy 24 regular long stem roses, realize how much extra work it may take than buying just a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
And starting your rose garden that way, starting your citrus with a fruit that you're going to like, and a healthy tree. It makes it where you're going to want to put forth that extra effort, and it is a couple of extra dollars now to keep a tree healthier, to a good producing, a long-lived tree, because it takes 3 years or better.
Yeah.
To get a decent crop of citrus, because that first year or two, you don't want it to ripen 2 and 3 dozen fruit first off. If you can't pick them all off, try to just leave a few.
Yeah. What we say on the farm, on the ranches out here, is the first 3 or 4 years you're growing a tree, and only after that are you growing fruit.
Are you growing fruit? Right. And in a commercial industry, you kind of have to do that. Well, in the homeowner, it's you're growing that tree, you're growing that root zone.
Mm-hmm.
And with anything you want to live an extended time, that's the better way to go. And it looks like we're probably running out of time here.
Wow, that was fast.
It has been faster. We're pretty close there, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. He didn't nod when I mentioned it. I'd look at the thing going, wow, we're almost out of time. It did go by really fast, Lance, and if anybody has any other questions, they know how to get a hold of me. They can always go to the Bear Advance website, which is bearadvance.com.
That's correct.
And there's a forum there to be able to ask a question, to make a comment, and they can get a hold of me via the website, and I'm on the air every Tuesday. So I sure do appreciate you coming on with us today.
Oh, it's been a blast, Carol Ann. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
right, thank you, Carol. We'll take a little break and we'll be right back.
All right now, I learned my lesson well. You see it.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. Tragedy during a training exercise at a Nevada military base. 7 Marines from Camp Lejeune were killed and at least 7 others wounded during a live mortar firing exercise at Hawthorne Army Depot outside Reno. A final insult from winter a day before spring. A nasty snowstorm is closing schools and roads and knocking out power in the Northeast. Northern Massachusetts and New York were especially hard hit. Pope Francis urged presidents and princes alike to protect the earth and the poorest of the poor. Over 200,000 people turned out to watch his installation ceremony at the Vatican. A U.S. trustee involved in the American Airlines filing for bankruptcy is expressing doubts about the deal because it gives the CEO of the failed company nearly $20 million in severance pay. When it comes to Alzheimer's, the odds are apparently against you. A study finds 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 has Alzheimer's or some degree of dementia at the time of death. Researchers say it's not a direct cause but can lead to it. Sufferers can forget to take medicine. This is ABC News.
Never play poker with a guy named Lucky. Never hit a piñata that has hornets coming out of it. Never play rock, paper, scissors with Edward Rock Hands or Edward Paper Hands. And never trust a car that hasn't been trusted to Midas. Save on brakes, maintenance, and total car care for a car you can depend on long after the warranty expires. You deserve the Midas touch. Get a comprehensive oil change, tire rotation, and visual brake check for $19.99. Up to 5 quarts conventional oil, shop fees extra. Most vehicles at participating Midas.
If you have gout, listen closely. That's the sound of gout silently attacking joints between flares. You won't hear it and you may not feel it, but if your uric acid level remains high, crystals can continue to build up in your joints. Over time, this may lead to attacks in other joints, constant pain, and joint destruction. So don't wait. For more information, go to goutinfo.com and talk with your doctor about ways to keep your uric acid at a lower, healthy level.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
That fantastic spring garden show and sale just keeps rolling along at Bob Wine's Camellia Garden in Ocala. This week, the emphasis is on trees. Hundreds of trees of all sizes, more than 40 different varieties, all at truckload sale prices at Bob Wine's. All trees are not available in all sizes, but come take your pick. From cherry laurel, bottle brush, sycamore, East Palatka holly, Savannah holly, ligustrum, magnolia, little gem magnolia, Japanese magnolia, dogwood, and a whole lot more. But the prices, large trees up to 6 feet tall, just $24.99. Extra large trees up to 11 feet, 2 for $2.99, delivered, planted, and guaranteed. Come on over to the all-new Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens this week and take your pick of the trees at spring garden show prices. Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens, Southeast 38th Street, Ocala, just a mile east of Blakeweir Avenue. Open daily till 4, Saturdays till 2. You'll agree, this is a garden place like no other.
130-166, 130-166, 130-166, 130-166.
What's that number?
Oh, Sean, hey, that's the number to join the March Mayhem Bracketology Challenge against the Voice of Ocala staff. If you want to join it, all you got to do is go to Yahoo Group 130-166, put in the password Buddy Show 1, that's BUDDY SHOW, the number 1, and you too can compete against us in the March Mayhem Bracket Challenge, brought to you by the Voice of Ocala at 130-166, 130-166, 130-166. Oh, okay. The deadline to join the Voice of Ocala's March Mayhem Bracket Contest is 12 p.m. on March 21st. That's right, the deadline is 12 p.m. this Thursday to join the Voice of Ocala March Madness Bracket Contest.
They've served our country. They've kept us free, and they need your help.
We're sitting in Veterans Park. You can't sit here not realizing that you're surrounded by heroes. There are a lot of heroes in our community. A lot of heroes, unfortunately, are not in good financial shape. They're hurting both physically and financially. We step in and help directly. Our role is to reach out to them. We're there to help the veteran. We do counseling. We do outreach. Sometimes it's just coming into the office and sitting down and saying, hey, I've got a problem, and you're talking to another veteran who understands that problem.
Everybody who works for the Vets Helping Vets are awesome, and they are so kind to everybody. They're like my second family. They really are.
They have been there during the holidays. I have gotten unexpected visits, assistance.
Vets Helping Vets of Marion County needs your help. Call today, 352-433-2320, and pledge your support to Vets Helping Vets of Marion County.
It really has been a blessing.
Hi, this is Brad, one of the hosts of Winging It here on WOCA every Friday at 9 a.m. I want to take a moment to talk about a serious issue regarding aviation. In the next 5 years, the aviation industry is projected to have a shortage of commercial pilots, in part due to the lack of new pilots starting their flight training now. A pilot needs 2 to 3 years to get through their training and to build up enough flight time to be able to be hired. Now is the time to start training. Ocala Flying Club has started a scholarship for the youth of Marion County ages 17 to 24. The club will donate up to $4,000 towards a private pilot's license. This license will help get the student on their way to obtaining their commercial pilot license. Now, of course, the student does not have to have aspirations of becoming a commercial pilot. If they simply have a desire to obtain their private pilot's license so they may enjoy the adventures of flying, they may also apply for the scholarship. If this sounds like something you would be interested in, or if you know someone that would be, please contact me, Brad, or Ron at Ocala Aviation Services, 861-7484. That's 861-7484.
Every day we hear another story about innovation or about cutting-edge technology taking place right here in Ocala. The power plant, IHMC, Ocala 489. Did you know that important medical research is also being conducted here that may impact hundreds of thousands of people in the country someday? Maybe you've heard the name Renstar, but like so many others, perhaps you didn't realize that Renstar Medical Research is one of the top facilities of its kind anywhere in the U.S. There are important research studies being conducted by a highly qualified team of medical experts at Renstar, impacting decisions of major pharmaceutical companies and bringing new drugs to market. And you can be a part of these studies, as so many local people have done and are currently doing. Renstar has conducted more than 500 studies since its inception and would like to extend the opportunity to you to be a part of these cutting-edge programs. Call 877-629-5800 or 352-629-5800 if you'd like to know more. Renstar Medical Research, locally owned and operated in beautiful downtown Ocala. Renstar, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 7 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Have you ever heard stories of people who wrote down exactly what they wanted to do, what their ambition was, what their dream was for the future, and then were able to kind of look back on that writing and say, wow, it's amazing how true this came. Or maybe it wasn't writing, maybe it was some, like, picture boards. You've heard of this visualization thing, right? I found an article online, and it's about the football player. Now, I don't know football players, and I don't know how to pronounce names. Is it Kaepernick or Kaepernick? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know the proper pronunciation.
Well, there's a story. He was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in 2011. He spent his entire rookie season on the bench beside Alex Smith, who was having a breakout year. The Niners would eventually lose the NFC Championship to the eventual Super Bowl champion of New York Giants. You wonder where I'm going with all this, right? When he was 9 years old, they printed a copy of this, something he wrote for school probably. He described himself as a good athlete, misspelled the word athlete, and in it he wrote that his intention is to play for the 49ers or possibly the Packers, and then he had in the quote, even if they aren't good in 7 years. Well, of course, he went on to defeat the Green Bay Packers, or to be part of the team that did. And I know you don't like to hear that, Robin, being from Wisconsin.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm open-minded.
But we're not talking about sports. We're not talking about that guy even. We're talking about the idea that as youngsters, we quite often pretend. And I've thought about this word pretend. Because to tend means to do. So you're pre-doing when you're pretending. when you're making believe, you're making yourself believe something.
Yeah.
There might be something to this, and I'm taking all this time to introduce our guest who's got something to say about some of this. James A. Owen is the founder and executive director of Coppervale International Art and Design Studio. He develops TV and film projects. He is redesigning an entire town.
That's the coolest thing. I love that.
And he's got an interesting concept or philosophy, I guess he wants to share with us, in addition to being obviously very talented. His book is called Drawing Out the Dragons, a meditation on art, destiny, and the power of choice. This is not just an artist on the phone, Robin. This is a philosopher. James A. Owen. Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us, and I hope I didn't drag out that intro too long. But I wanted to kind of illustrate it a little bit with this football player, Colin Kaepernick. I don't know how to say his name, but do you know? I'm sorry.
I think that was a great introduction. I was ready to just sit here and keep listening to you for 20 minutes.
Oh no, that's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Now, but am I on the right track with what we're going to talk about?
You're absolutely on the right track, because what you were saying about, to tend is to do. Pretending is planning. You know, it's you have to imagine things before you can do them. You have to believe that they're possible.
Yeah.
And that's a huge obstacle that so many people have that starts when we're very young. Things in our environment, things in society, preconditioning us to believe that things are just too difficult, things are just not possible, when in fact the entire opposite is true.
Anything is possible.
Absolutely.
Including, let's see, what was the line that John Lennon said? Life is what happens while you're busy making other plans or something.
Right.
So while you're making those other plans, some of those other things that you never thought about. You know, it's kind of like, planning to take a trip to the Grand Canyon. Somewhere between here and there's going to be something you didn't plan, good or bad. I mean, it could be a good thing. You might bump into an old uncle or something.
But the thing that's important is that you have that plan and you have that course mapped out.
Yeah.
When I talk in writing seminars, I talk about how I outline novels as if they're roadmaps. And you have certain places you have to stop at along the way to make sure that you tell that story. So say you're starting out in Los Angeles, you're going to end up in Florida. Along the way, you have to go to Las Vegas and Phoenix and Denver and New Orleans. But everything else along the way, you make up as you're going on that trip. As long as you hit those destinations, you'll tell the story you want to tell. And I think the same is true for planning the things you want to do with your life. If you have that straight course planned out, you're going to have days that things don't go right. You're going to have things that show up and divert you from your path. But as long as you have that course mapped out in your head and keep going back to it, you're going to find a way to do the things you want to do.
Oh, wow. Now, did you discover this, or did you kind of instinctively know it, or what's the story behind you grasping this?
It's one of those things. It's like with the books being a 20-year overnight success story. People suddenly discover your books, and it looks like you're a new discovery, and you've been doing this for 20 years. And I think it's the same thing with certain philosophies. You find things out by doing them. And one of the things that I was hoping to do by sharing these stories in this book is helping people to realize that, sooner, saying that here's the examples I have of how I found this course, how I figured this out, and hopefully it can make your path a little easier.
Okay, and that's the important part of this, is what you're saying is that if we pay attention to what is being said here, we might be able to avoid some problems. And in the same way that the difference between taking the road trip you described with a map or without a map, obviously with a map is going to be a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of dealing with obstacles and difficulties that people have in their lives, there's a quote that I put in the back of the book that I quoted one of my favorite TV shows, The West Wing. And a couple of the characters were talking about, getting through some obstacle. And one of them tells a story about how there's a man trapped in a hole, and he calls for help. Someone hears him, And instead of putting a rope or a ladder down into the hole, the second man jumps down in the hole with him. And the first man says, "Why did you do that? Now we're both stuck down here." And the first man says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before, and I know how to get out."
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. And that's good.
Wow.
So we're learning from you. Where are you, by the way? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from northeast Arizona.
Oh, excellent.
In the heart of the town that I'm apparently redesigning.
Apparently.
You know, that's fun. That started out as a joke until one day we realized it actually wasn't. Because a little over a decade ago, I moved back to Arizona, to the town that I grew up in.
What's the town called?
Taylor.
Taylor, okay.
And we'd actually called it Silvertown in the back of my novels. And so there have been 8 years of people looking for a town that doesn't exist. But Taylor is where I was raised. And the studio that I work in is the original LDS church house, the original Mormon church house that was built here over a century ago.
Wow.
And it was added to in the 20s, then added to again in the 60s. Then it was sold as being too old and you know, not worth actually fixing up sometime in the late 80s. And here, about a decade ago, I bought it and have been restoring it. And it's one of the oldest buildings in town. It's certainly one of the most visible buildings in town. And now it's kind of a combination of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and the Walt Disney Studio from around the Pinocchio era. But it's all about comic books and art and writing and literature.
Oh, I see. So you've had a huge influence on Taylor, Arizona.
Very much so. There's a little country Victorian house at 1 South Main that we renovated and have turned into a bookstore because there was no bookstore here where people could come and buy my novels. The nearest new bookstore was a Barnes & Noble in Flagstaff, which is 2 hours away.
Okay, right.
We renovated this little house, and there are a couple of other commercial properties that I'm slowly working on. But even to the extent of the design of the town, at every street corner down Main Street, there are large terracotta pots with little steel-cut, two-dimensional images of country life that have been laser cut out of sheets of black steel. So you have silhouettes of quilting bees and a man plowing his field and children fishing. And all of those silhouettes were drawn by my senior apprentice based on original designs by my mother.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And
so gradually, yeah, there's a fun transformation taking place in this community.
So is it almost possible that you're an eyewitness to the very principle or the philosophy that we started out with?
I think so, yes.
And it's really uncanny when a person inadvertently becomes an inspiration to others, because then you know that you are giving yourself the courage to move forward in what you want to do, but you're also giving others that courage to move forward in what they want to do, and they're not going to listen to the people that say, "Oh, why are you doing this? It cannot be done."
You know, that's a really good point. One of the key phrases, one of the key philosophies out of Drawing Out the Dragons is that if you really, really want to do something, no one can stop you. But if you really don't want to do something, no one can help you.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
You know, a lot of what that means is people take their cues from you. And if you're having a rough time, or if you're having challenges with something you want to do, and you wail and moan about it, people might commiserate, and they'll feel sympathy, but they're not going to really feel inspired to help you. But if the cart is stuck in the mire, so to speak, and you're down there, you know, up to your hips in mud, and you're pushing this thing, and everybody says, you know, that's impossible, and your response is, you know what, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get this thing out. I'm going to make this work. Then people feel inspired, and they think, you know, I could lend a hand.
Yeah.
I could help push that.
I believe you're right. Yes. Oh my goodness. I don't know why that happens, and it's almost mysterious, isn't it? But people do show up in your life that seem to be like who you will need. And a lot of times, you know, Robin and I play music, so you study a band, and you say, well, how do these guys get together? It's almost weird that they would find each other. I mean, there's many examples of that.
Oh, very much so.
Let's see, how do I ask this one? When we are talking about trying to pre-design our future, I guess. This is what I've heard. I've heard if you pray to the angels, and this, I don't know if you subscribe to that, but let me just say it this way, and you ask, in my future, could you please, I want to be sitting on a pile of money. You know, they have a sense of humor. They might get you a job at the Mint, and you're making $7 an hour, but on your lunch break, you're sitting on a pile of money. So you have to be specific. Do you agree with that?
I think you've got to be specific. I think you've got to find your specific calling in life. I think you've got to do the things that you actually love. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell's idea of following your bliss.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, that doesn't just mean doing something that you love without looking at the business aspects of it, the real world aspects, and figuring out how to monetize it. You have to pay, you know, the cost of living. You have to figure out a way to make it a job. So I can't just be an artist.
That's true, yeah.
You know, sitting up here in my chocolate factory drawing pretty pictures. I have to figure out how to actually make that work as a business as well.
Okay.
You know, sometimes that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, oh, well, quite often with artists and writers. We speak to writers pretty much every day, and included in that are writers who've had, you know, some kind of art background or music background, or in some way they're involved in the arts, and quite often that's the weakest link in their whole lives, is how to market it. I was watching this special on David Geffen. David Geffen says in this video biography, he's got no talent at all. And I said, well, I disagree. I don't know the guy. Because his talent was to get other people who had talent to make money with that talent.
Well, that was Walt Disney's too. You know, Disney and Geffen are cut from the same cloth.
That's true. That's true.
You know, the thing is, there are 7 billion people on this planet. Our world is getting more and more interconnected all the time. And if you work at something diligently enough, you ought to be able to find enough people interested in what it is that you're doing for you to make a living.
I like the lines that you use for your illustrations, because they're, even though they seem apart, they're interconnecting, because on your website you feature those illustrations, and I just think it's wonderful.
You know, thank you very much. The illustration part has a lot to do with why I wrote that book, because the book opens, the prologue talks about early in my comic book career, I had a car accident and crushed my drawing hand.
Oh.
And I was told point blank, you're going to need to find a new career because this is over.
Oh,
and
my
I had to decide how badly I wanted to do this for a living.
Uh-huh.
And virtually everything that you've seen, everything that people really know me for, all the art that you've seen has been done after that accident.
Oh, my gosh.
Did you do it with your other hand, or did you get the hand that got damaged to work?
Well, see, that was the thing. Initially, I was able to do some things with my left hand. That was the resolution. I had done 2 issues of my comic book series, Star Child, and I had this accident. And the doctors said, you know, the way that it's been damaged, you can go into therapy, but you're not going to be able to draw again. And I came up with what I decided was the big secret of art. And it's just 2 parts. First, art is making lines on paper. And second, it's choosing where they go. That's it. It's just that easy, and it's just that hard. And I'd realized that my right hand had the muscle memory that made it easier, but I was choosing where to make the lines with my mind, and I could make lines with my left hand.
Oh, I love that.
So I created a prequel to the comic books called Star Child #0 that was a comic of half-page illustrations laid out left-handed and half-page of typeset text. And then I got other comic book artists I'd met to come in and finish those illustrations that I'd laid out left-handed. And then I went to my therapist and said, listen, I don't need to be able to open up peanut butter jars. My wife is very strong. I don't need to be able to tie my shoes or dress myself. That's what sweats and Velcro are for. I need to be able to draw. And so for 4 hours a day for the next 8 months, he had me putting screws into blocks of wood and pulling them out again, so I could develop my hand to hold a pen and pencil and draw again. And then I went right back in to drawing the third issue of Star Child because they were the same lines, because it was the same mind making those choices.
Did you, my goodness, you know, I would love to be like a fly on the wall or a spirit invisible near you when that revelation came to you, when you were so determined that you were going to make it happen, and you said, I'm not going to take no for an answer. That moment when you said, I'm not taking no for an answer, that's the moment.
You just hit on the key moment of everything that I have tried to teach in these lectures and in this book.
Yeah.
Because I had declared this to everyone. And there was sort of a gentle intervention held with family and friends and the doctors saying, okay, having a positive attitude, that's a good thing, but you need to face reality. You need to accept what has happened here. And what I felt was that I believe every once in a while the universe opens itself up to you and you alone and shows you something that's possible. And you have to decide in that moment how much you believe in what you want to do, even if it means telling everyone else in the world they're wrong.
Wow, I love this conversation, by the way. Yeah. I'm looking at the clock saying, gosh, why isn't this a longer interview? But here, I want to tell you something. Somebody posted on Facebook this saying. It said, if you are ever wondering why God seemed to be absent in the most difficult times of your life, remember the teacher is always quiet during a test. And if you were before the accident, made your mind up, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to do comic books, and all of a sudden you had the biggest test of your life, well, you just got straight A's because of that absolute insistence, and I don't care what you're going to do to me, I'm going to make this work attitude.
And, that's the thing is once you've been tested, in those moments where, as you said, you feel like you're alone, when people see that determination and they see your willingness to work, this isn't just about expressing a desire to end up on a pile of money. This is a willingness to get down in the muck and push the cart yourself. And when people see that, they see something in your face, they hear it in your voice, and they will find ways to help you do what you're trying to do.
Oh, I love that. And let me tell you the philosophy Robin and I have with this show. We don't really care about, I mean, my boss does, about the money, but we really don't care about, well, our objective, we want our listeners, after they've tuned into the show, to say, boy, I'm glad I tuned into that this morning. That's all. That's our whole goal. We just want to make them go the rest of their day and say, gosh, I'm glad I tuned into that one. That's it. It's as simple as that.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, because true life stories, I mean, you can see them on television. You can have all the dramatic music you want to behind it and everything. But, you have a person just like you and you're living it. You don't have dramatic music in there. You have you yourself and your goal in your heart, and you do anything you can to reach that goal. And that's where the true inspiration comes from.
Well, I hope so.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to do that.
Well, I've spoken in lots of schools. That's how this started out. Was I was going and speaking at middle schools and libraries about my fantasy novels, and I gradually realized if I had the attention of 400 eighth graders for an hour, I didn't want to spend that time just talking to them about dragons and fantasy and magic, because they have good teachers and good librarians and reading groups, and I thought, if I've got their attention for an hour, I want to talk to them about how I made the choices I made to do what I love most for my job, and more importantly, how I overcame the obstacles that came up to be able to do this. Because if I've got their attention for 1 hour, I want to share the things that I believe are most important to share.
Did you have a David Geffen or a Walt Disney, or did you apply therapy like the screw-turning therapy to some other part of your brain in order to be the marketing person you needed to be?
That was all just pretty much learning the hard way and starting in. I was actually the youngest exhibitor ever to be an exhibitor at the San Diego Comic-Con.
Wow.
I started a comic book company when I was 15 and published my first comic book the next year, and my business partner and I still didn't have driver's licenses.
Oh, I love that.
My aunt my aunt had to drive us, but we got the booth. We got there late because the U-Haul we had overheated, and we'd prepaid for our hotel room. And this is the largest comics convention in the country. So this huge 5-star hotel in San Diego, the U.S. Grant, all they had left was their presidential suite. So these 3 teenagers and this graphic designer end up in a presidential suite, and I'd be showing my comic book to retailers who'd be on the fence about it. It was good, but it wasn't brilliant. And I'd say, well, don't decide right now. Why don't you come over to my suite at the U.S. Grant, and we'll have some drinks and talk about it. And so they'd show up in this suite that was basically being occupied by these teenagers.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I promise you some drinks. I've got some 7-Up and some Dr. Pepper right here, and let's talk about my comic book. So you, as long as you have those goals ahead of you, you deal with what comes. You make use of the resources that become available to you because you've kept your eyes open. That's how you learn.
I love what you're saying, and I love the fact that that's what you taught those children when you went to speak to the children. And I'm guessing the fact that you draw awesome dragons, now that I found you online, because I was trying to figure out, where did Robin see all this stuff? I don't have the book here. And then she kind of, as she's talking to you, she reveals, I saw it online.
Yeah.
So I went to your website.
See, we have covert operations.
Everybody
here.
else can look. JamesAOwen.com. That's where I went, and we are out of time, but I wish we weren't. Let me write that in. I'll pretend it.
That's right.
And no, I can't do that. James, thank you for being on the air with us. The book is called Drawing Out the Dragons. It looks like that's just one of many books that you've done.
And hopefully the latest in a long string to come.
How is your hand now? Is it totally healed?
It is better than 100%.
Wow.
It's good to go. So.
What a great interview. Thank you so much for being on the air with us. And let me see, I want to leave the listeners with what? The website? JamesAOwen.com.
Yep.
Anything else?
I think it's been a great interview. Thank
you see, I don't want
the opportunity.
Now, normally, James, I ask authors, can we get the book on Amazon? But you already expressed that you love this little bookstore in your town. So I'm going to tell everybody, go to their little bookstores and support them.
Yeah. Actually, the links for that are through the website at JamesAOwen.com. That's where the links to get it through that bookstore are, and all those books come signed as well, so even better than Amazon.
Oh, there you go. That's a good reason to go. JamesAOwen.com. Thank you, James. Great interview. I love the philosophy, and I'm going to embrace it.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Robin.
We'll take a break and be right back.
Alice?
Yes, George?
Did you know I'm a truck driver now?
What?
I called Devon Self Storage at 873-0777, and John and Mike now have a moving truck.
Are you cleaning out the garage?
Well, I do have time because Devon Self Storage is open late, and they're right across from Hobby Lobby on 200.
You better call them first.